Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the NBA Betting Show. With me today, Matt Meiselman. Mike is off today. I'll be off tomorrow, so we're just doing two-man shows for these days. Matt, let's start with some fun with the Grizzlies Kings yesterday. The disrespected Kings, the Kings who may be okay for betting first place or at least favored. Anyway, let's talk about the game.
Yep.
What was recommended and what happened?
Okay, just very quickly before we get into this game, I'm just going to throw this Nikola Jokic value thing on the screen. We're going to get here. This line is set at a place where we have to know if he's in or out before doing anything. So we will break this down after we talk about yesterday. The Kings game was actually. We haven't had a lot of bets on this team this year, but I feel like when we have bet on them, it's been good. We had them in a game where Sabonis was upgraded a couple weeks ago when he had first gotten injured, but then came back. They beat Denver. We had them in a game against the Lakers. I think it was right after Davis got hurt. And this was, I guess, maybe we're 3-0 betting on Sacramento this year. It's a very rare thing, but like we disagree with the market on this team, but this was a rare circumstance because we had an indication that John Morant was going to be out, and the market was not even remotely pricing that in. So
Mm-hmm.
I put out a tweet on Sunday night that we were going to be projecting this game at 2.5, and the line at that time was 2.5, or it was like 2 or 2.5. But given the way the Grizzlies game was going that night against Phoenix, Morant was a very strong rest candidate. And then when we came on the show yesterday, the line was still 1.5 for Sacramento. Like it hadn't moved much. Um, the thing that was weird was Steven Adams popped up on the injury report. I thought Bane was the guy who would be more likely to join Morant. So we were saying if Morant gets downgraded, treat that as him being out because he's downgraded for rest, basically. And he did get downgraded late afternoon, and the line swung from +1.5 to -2, which is like roughly where we were projecting it
Mm-hmm.
if he was out. If him and Adams were both out because they both got downgraded. But then I think this was played right. I'm not really sure. If there's one thing I wish I did, it would have been talking more about player props because
Okay.
the market wasn't expecting anyone to be out. It turned out that Brooks and Jackson would have won and Bane would have lost. So we would have gone 2-1 on like any statistical category for those three guys. Bane came in under everything and Jackson and Brooks came in over. So I think we should have highlighted that too because they were all listed at every book. It's just I kind of thought Bane would also be out. So that was a little bit of a weird situation. But the thing that was the last thing I put out on Twitter before this game actually happened, before we got the final injury report, was that if Morant and Adams were ruled out, or at least Morant, the line was going to overcorrect. It turns out, based on the score, that it wasn't literally the case. Like we had it projected Kings -1.5, so we were in at Kings +1.5, and then the line moved to 4.5. So I ended up betting it back the other way. I wish I hadn't, but we had a 1 unit bet on Memphis at tip off. So
So
yeah,
just so I can follow that one.
okay, I can do that again.
Yeah, well, just do the last part. So what at tip off? What did our model say, and what was the line?
Okay, so pre-injury news, Kings +1.5. Tip off, Kings -4.5, and we had the fair line exactly between those numbers at Grizzlies +1.5. So it moved 6, and our fair line was dead center in the 3 each way.
Got it.
So
Okay.
betting 1 unit and then hedging for a unit is probably what I would have recommended if anyone was like really asking that in real time. I personally bet more than that on Sacramento initially because I knew the line was going to move so much from the jaw update. Like I knew we
Okay.
were getting an overcorrection, so the way I handled it was 2 units on Sacramento with 1 unit back. Because we've talked about this, a lot of the time you know the line is going to move and you just bet as much as you can because you're going to have
Got it.
arbitrage once it moves. So that was the case here. Um, yeah, the game results were weird because the Grizzlies were actually winning this game halfway through the third quarter and then just stopped scoring entirely. They were up 73-71, I want to say 7 minutes left in the third. And then over the final 19 minutes of the game, they scored 27 points. They just forgot how to
That's
do
a
anything.
yeah. Okay.
I mean, Morant not being there is part of that, so it makes sense
Mhm.
that we liked Sacramento for this game because he wasn't going to be playing. But I was
Right.
watching it and like Dylan Brooks, okay, I mean that's normal. He can't hit an open shot. He's just a bad shooter. But Santi Aldama was standing in the corner, missing wide open corner threes repeatedly. Bane couldn't hit a
Mhm.
shot. Jackson was playing okay, but the Kings also didn't miss. I mean, Trey Lyles made 6 threes in this game.
I missed that part.
Yeah, Trey Lyles
Okay.
had a career high 24 points with 6 threes. So another win for the Kings. Yeah, I hope that helped just to like break down how the lines moved. But
Mhm.
sometimes you have a bet and then you end up. It feels wrong. It really sucks if last night you spent all day waiting for a Morant update. You bet Sacramento on the news. It was a great move to be able to get that. And then you ended up breaking even because you bet it all back on Memphis the other way. Like, that's just psychologically, that's just annoying. Because I imagine there are some number of people where that's what they did. So um, sometimes that's just how it goes, I guess. Like, there was a scenario where Sacramento could have won this game by a small number of points and you won both. Like, that was available.
Right.
So it would have been better if that happened. But yeah, I think I don't have any regrets for how I played this or how anyone else would have played this if they were similar to me. But obviously, the score was not exactly what we were thinking.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just checking the box scores. Sabonis almost had the weird quadruple double. 14, 10, 11, and then 8 turnovers.
He was their worst player last night. It was very strange. Harrison Barnes scored 15 points in the first 5 minutes of this game.
Okay. Yeah, I missed this. I missed watching this one.
Yeah, the
So it
Kings
sounds like
started
all
the Kings
kinds of
started
football.
10 of 10 from 3. Their first 10 threes of the game all went in. They scored 47 points in the first quarter. It was wild. Yeah, there's I don't know. We could do this whole thing of like, is the Sacramento like arena and fan base, is there like some magical? There's not. This is just like the fans get excited when the team is playing really well. It makes it very easy to forget this team just lost at home to the Sixers without Embiid or Harden. Their last game before this, that just happened.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on our probably second favorite topic on the show behind
Pacific
Alex
Division?
Burks and Emmanuel Quickly? But any thoughts on Pacific Division futures? Or
Yeah.
not too much to take into it given who was out last night for the Grizz.
Well, I think every win is just relevant because it's probability in the standing. So my opinion of the team hasn't changed from last night, but their probability to win the division certainly has changed because they just beat arguably the best team in the NBA. I think this is the best team in the Western Conference. Denver's close, but I think this is the best
Yeah, I
team.
was gonna say you like them better than Denver?
We have them rated like a tenth of a point higher.
Yeah.
They're very close. Sacramento is still like plus 170 to plus 190, I think, across the market. I probably, because the line hasn't shifted yet, I'm just waiting for more results. Like Phoenix plays again tonight. The Clippers play again tonight. The Warriors don't play until tomorrow. But like if those teams lose the next game or two, then I'm gonna then the Kings can actually pull away. But there are going to be games coming up where these teams are facing each other. I don't even think the Kings have played. I don't know if there have been any Kings Suns games this year. Maybe one. So like we're still a long way away from them being like well in front. But I do think a win like that against a really good team, we sort of, I think, agreed that the Kings and Suns, if one of them is ahead, it's not by much in terms of projected to win the division. It's close. And the Warriors are right there too. Like this could be a 3-way tie right now in terms of probability. So if the Kings are a little bit ahead, I don't think they're a plus EV bet right now because they could be the most likely team to win this division, and the probability of that could be 28%.
Right. I'm with you.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we're at. I think they could be 30% or less, but they are the favorite.
Got it.
And the Suns are like 27,
like,
and the Warriors are like 26. Like they're all really close.
Yeah, it looks like on Bet Rivers it's 175 for the Kings and 300 for the Suns. So, all right, let's.
If the Suns lose at home to Charlotte tonight, I think the Kings start to approach like plus EV territory. They're right on the fringe. So, for me as a hedge, I would probably take some if the Suns lose tonight. But I think it's worth for most people to just wait a bit.
Got it. All right. Anything else from yesterday, or are we do we have the Jokic what ifs?
There were a couple. Yeah, we should spend most of our remaining time on that. But there were a couple like marginal bets that we had sort of talked about. I got in two of them and missed one, but we had a Wolves bet if Gobert played, and that one lost. That was like a half unit bet. If you bet the total for this game, which I actually didn't, but I think it pushed. I think that the total was 233 because Gobert being in helps the under, but I think the line was already trending towards him being in anyway. So if I remember it right, I think it only dropped like 1 point after he was confirmed because the market was pricing him somewhere in the 50-50 to probable range. So that was one of them. Then LaMelo Ball getting ruled out gave us like a small, this could have been like a half unit bet on Utah. I actually missed this one, but yeah, good thing the Jazz got a win. Markkanen had another good game. He's now like minus 140 for most improved player of the year. So very happy to see that. And if anyone bet Utah, yeah, it was like a marginally good bet. And then the other one was we had said if Portland doesn't rest anybody, we have a bit of value there. It was like -8. It closed at like -9. We projected at 10. Yeah, so this game, this for me was like a third of a unit also that I got on Portland. I guess Gary Payton is playing back-to-backs. He was on a minutes restriction. I think he played like 15 minutes in each game, but they did get him to do that. So Portland isn't dead yet, I guess is the conclusion there. I still don't like their chances to make the playoffs, but they're not dead yet. They beat the Spurs at home. They're good enough for that.
The Spurs who are trying to race to the bottom three.
Just on the Spurs, which one thing that makes absolutely no sense to me, Doug McDermott is one of like 3 players that are floating around in trade talks right now who I don't understand why any team would even sign him if he was a free agent for free.
I understand.
Him and Serge Ibaka are like in a lot of rumors right now, and why does any team want them?
There's the people talk themselves into McDermott being a 3-point threat. Like that's if teams need spacing, they're going to talk themselves into it. I'm not saying that it's right. They're going to talk themselves into it. And then the only other thing is just if there's, if I haven't looked at the contract situation, but if they're expiring contracts, that may be more about it than anything else.
Well, I guess if they're getting draft picks for him, it can't just be that. Like they should be giving picks to get rid of him if it's that. Like a second rounder plus McDermott just to shed his contract. But McDermott is shooting. I mean, he's shooting like 41% from 3 for his career. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter, but he is absolutely terrible at every other element of basketball. That's all he has. He's a slightly above average shooter and is bad at everything. He should be a Laker. That those rumors do that it works. He should be on that team.
That's right. That could have been the Kendrick Nunn replacement instead of Rui. So
yeah, it wouldn't help their defense, but yeah. They do need shooting. All right. Let's not spend too much time.
We're gonna have some fun when we get close to the trade deadline. I'm really looking forward to having all our what ifs ready, and then seeing if anybody has value in guys like McDermott. And again, a couple of the teams we keep talking about Portland and probably Toronto more than anybody are nothing would surprise me about which direction they go. Does Portland try to make some kind of move to try to give Dame some more ammunition? Or do they go the opposite direction? Same thing with Toronto. I could see them being buyers or sellers. Yeah. But getting time to make a decision. So, all right. Anything else from yesterday? Are we ready to move to the 11-point impact of Jokic, depending on in or out?
Since we're on futures, maybe we'll go to today, but I want to cover the Chicago-Indiana game briefly first.
Mm-hmm.
We can save Jokic. We're not getting an update on him anytime soon. So people can just stare at this very dark green number on the screen where we have tons of value if he plays, and then we'll have it the other direction if he's out. But Chicago, Indiana is one of the more important playoff implication games that we've had all year, and also potentially for trades that these teams might make. Because I'm not going to pull up the standings. I just want to double check where they are. I have it on my other screen over here. Indiana and Chicago are the 9 and 10 in the East right now. They are both 2 games ahead of both Toronto and Washington, but we just found out that Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out for multiple weeks, so I think Washington is kind of falling behind here. If Indiana loses this game at home to the Bulls, I honestly think that could be enough for them to just say, all right, we've gave it our best try this season, but let's trade Miles Turner now. They're on a 7-game losing streak. They've lost every game since Tyrese Halliburton got injured. So like this team is not in the position they were in before. And unfortunately, we have these Pacers play-in bets at plus 750, which had turned into something like minus 200. And now they're like,
look great. Those bets look great for a few days.
They're still 50-50. Like the value is still extremely strong, but now it's like 50-50.
Right. And what's the prognosis for Halliburton's return?
I think he's only going to be out another week or two.
Got it.
He's been doing like partial practices and light scrimmaging and whatever.
Okay.
He's moving in the right direction, but he's not playing this week.
All right. So we're showing Indianapolis value if actually
Nembhard doesn't matter.
So right. So should that one be a bet now since Nembhard doesn't matter?
Yeah. The only reason I'm waiting here is because the public is on Chicago, and I think we could see a 2.5 at some point. But the reason to bet it early is because the Bulls are on the second leg of back-to-back right now. They could sit somebody. The most likely person to sit for the Bulls always is going to be Alex Caruso. The way he plays, he's just always dealing with something.
Got it.
And he also happens to be their highest rated player, even though most people would say it's DeRozan, it's Levine, it's Vucevic is bad. I don't think anyone is like this game is legitimately very important for the standings. So that's also part of why I brought it up. Like I don't think DeMar DeRozan gets a rest game today. If he's hurt and we find out about it, sure, that's a different story. But Caruso could just like be too sore to play today. My gut though
is this a bet a half unit now and wait for news, or are you waiting for it to get to 2.5 before you would bet Indianapolis?
If the Bulls announce in the next hour or two that no one's on the injury report, the line is going to move more towards Chicago. That's kind of why I'm waiting, because then we can get a better number. So if you're not around today, I think this is a bet. There's even additional upside if like Caruso or maybe it's DeRozan or maybe it's Levine happens to not be healthy enough to play. But the most optimal way to play this, if you're around for it, is to, if we get someone for the Bulls ruled out, bet it then. And if we get no one on the injury report, it's going to go to 2.5 or 3. And then you would just bet the Pacers at that point. So you get a better number.
Got it.
Yeah, that's personally what I'm doing. But if you can't do that, I think betting it now is fine. This is like a half unit bet right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and then for this game, like the Pacers are only, I want to double check this. I think they're only like minus 180 to miss the playoffs. Maybe it's like into the 200s now, but even at that number, they're not like, they're almost done for the playoffs if they lose this game. I think this game is that important for them. Not done in the sense that like they won't make the play-in, but done in the sense that they're going to start looking into not having the roster that they currently have, which is probably the likely outcome anyway. Like they're probably going to trade Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Those are two of the most likely trade candidates in the NBA. I think the reason to have held them was 7 games ago when they were like the 4 seed. That looked a little bit different. Maybe they weren't going to make a move, but now, it's quite a bit of a different situation. They're tied for 9th, and if they lose this game, they're in 10th place, and they'd only be a game ahead of Toronto, who is a much better team than Indiana is.
Got it. I know there's a big fork in the road here for Indianapolis.
Yeah, and they just to bring
Chicago?
up.
I mean, in terms of trade rumors, I keep hearing all the 3 names you talked about, Levine, Vooch, and DeRozan. They're all actively in trade rumors.
So I just pulled up the lines on Bet Rivers. The Bulls are minus 215 to miss the playoffs. The Pacers are minus 235. I think the loser of this game is plus EV to miss the playoffs.
Got it.
Yeah. Even laying
plus EV at those numbers.
Even laying minus 200 or so. Yeah, I think the loser of this game is in a pretty bad spot because I think it makes them more likely to make a move. But right now on 538, the Pacers are only listed at 20% to get in anyway. So it's really Indiana is the team that is more likely to like fall apart. Because the other thing with Chicago that's different from Indiana, Chicago doesn't have a top-heavy roster. If they trade Zach LaVine and start playing Kobe White in his place, the team gets like 1 point worse. If the Pacers trade Miles Turner and start playing Terry Taylor, they get like 4 points worse. Even
Yeah,
though Levine and Turner are similar level players, the Pacers don't have the depth.
got it. Yeah, from what I've heard, most of and again, this isn't breaking news, but it what I'm hearing is if the Bulls are moving, they're moving two guys or three guys.
Okay,
not one guy. Like
it's not a retool. It's not a retool. They're either like going for it or they're not.
Right. Yeah. So I agree that trading one of those guys might only have a 1 point value, but it's likely that if they trade, they're trading two or all three. So that's where the Bulls could potentially be a significantly different team. So very very interesting game tonight for the rest of the season impact for both of those teams. So in terms of what to do right now, again, since we talked about a lot of stuff, just to recap, technically there is value right now on Indianapolis. If you're not around, half unit bet today is fine, but there's possibility that better line becomes available if all the Chicago guys are announced in.
Yeah. My best guess is we'll see a 2.5, probably not a 3, but that extra half point, if you can afford to wait, why not?
Sure. Okay. All right. So that's Chicago, Indianapolis. Looks like no other. Well, Dallas, Washington's close, but
let's just talk about Jokic. Yeah, Dallas, Washington is close. If Quickly plays, the Knicks look kind of good. He's worth 1.5 to 2, so we'd have a partial unit on the Knicks if Quickly gets upgraded. But nothing really compares to this Jokic situation. So I think we've waited long enough for him.
You probably had to widen the column for the impact because I don't think we have anybody else.
Double digits. It's a good place to start because the last few Jokic questionable games, I've only had his impact listed here at 9 or 9.5 because his impact is lower on the margins of blowout territory. In a normal game where the Nuggets are favored by 10 or 12 against an inferior opponent, if you take Jokic out, there was some DeAndre Jordan or garbage time or whatever baked into that original estimate of the game. So to remove him doesn't remove as much of him because some of what we're doing incorporates the possibility of there being garbage time at the end of the game. So you're removing less Jokic in that situation. In this game, though, we have it where one team is going to be favored by like 6 if he's in, and the other team is going to be favored by like 6 if he's out. Like it's evenly distributed across the 0. So this is like the maximum amount he can be worth. The reason he's only at 11.5 right now instead of the 12.5 or 13 that I thought it might be in the past is that DeAndre Jordan is like not playing. He might play tonight, but he was a DNP coach's decision last game, even though Jokic was out. So Jokic matters less if DeAndre is not the backup, basically, is how this number is here.
Right.
DeAndre might play. I mean, it could be. I think we've talked about this. It's matchup dependent. The Thunder start Mike Muscala at center, who is like a stretch 4, basically playing center. The Pelicans have Jonas Valanciunas. So DeAndre makes more sense in this matchup. So they may start him. I think it is the more likely thing, actually, but I don't know for sure. Because they didn't play him last game and they actually lost. So I do feel like if Jokic is out, DeAndre probably starts, but I don't know for sure.
All right. So how are you playing this?
This is all like semantics, really, and so is Michael Porter Jr., who we have over here, also questionable. He's worth like 1.5 points. So sure, he matters, but like this is Jokic. He's so much more relevant than any of the other variables that he's really the only thing that's worth spending any amount of focus on. If we find out he's in, it's Denver. If we find out he's out, it's New Orleans. And I do think the line will move enough that it's in as much as possible situation for dollar amount. And then you can hedge. And if anyone wants to do that and they want to like tweet back at me, like how much should I hedge? Like I'm available to answer those questions, but right now we have, let me pull up unabated so we can see where the lines are. There we go. I'm going to need a refresh unabated. Hold on. I think it's 1 across the market. Denver's a small favorite everywhere. So if he's in, we're projecting Denver minus 6.7, and it depends on Porter, but I think it won't move that far, but it'll move. Like Denver could move to -3, -4, maybe -5. Because the market just doesn't quite understand how good he is. And in the opposite direction, I think it would be the same thing. So if he's out, we'd be projecting it at New Orleans -4.8, and then, give or take a point or two, depending on Najee Marshall or Michael Porter or potential Brandon Ingram upgrade. But roughly New Orleans -5. But I don't think the market moves quite that far either. I think it would go to like 3 or 4. But even those amounts are enough where you definitely have arbitrage.
All right, and so let's talk about Ingram real quick. So he was, at least for me, a surprise upgrade to doubtful. So anything to take from that, or there's really nothing until we get any news moving from? Is there if he shows up at shoot around?
Yeah, that would be one of the ways. I want to be careful with this one though, because he's listed doubtful, but there's a difference between listed doubtful and upgraded to doubtful. That language does matter. So I'm trying to find what the official announcement was, because I don't know which one it was. Yeah, I think.
And what's the difference between listed doubtful and announced doubtful?
Upgraded to doubtful. The fact that they say the word
listed or upgraded.
Yeah,
for somebody like Ingram who's just been out.
Right.
I get.
I think also it's different when the player has been out for a long time compared to if they just got hurt or they were dealing with the COVID one is the one where we really care about it, because when a player who is out for health and safety protocols is listed doubtful from out, it literally, I think at this point we know it literally means the guy's going to play if he can test negative.
Right.
Like he's fine, but he needs to be able to clear the protocol.
Right. Well, that's not the case here with Ingram, though, since he's been out for injury purposes for a while.
Yeah, so I do have the update of what actually happened. He went through practice, so that doesn't necessarily mean full practice. And the reporter who had it says if he can tolerate the pain, he will play. I think there is a legitimate chance he plays tonight, for sure.
Okay.
But this is the front end of a back-to-back, and tomorrow's game is against Minnesota, which isn't really any more or less relevant. Like Denver's a little above New Orleans, Minnesota is a little behind New Orleans. They could justify playing him tomorrow because it seems like it would be a tough ask for him to play both legs of a back-to-back off an injury. He was out for 3 weeks. It probably does make more sense for him to just, like, the doubtful could just indicate that he's close to playing and he'll be back tomorrow. But
so I know we never get news at the same time, but let me give you a weird hypothetical. Let's say you get Jokic. So what would it be?
I don't think we should go too far down this rabbit hole because Ingram doesn't matter enough. Like Ingram's player rating is 1.4.
Okay.
And remember, this is the Pelicans who have the deepest roster in the NBA. Not the best bench, but just the most competent backups. Like Ingram's backups are Larry Nance with 0.1, Trey Murphy 0.1, Devontae Graham 0.6, Dyson Daniels -1. Like the 1.4 that he has down to it's like a 1-point impact.
Got it. Okay.
So he just doesn't matter enough to spend too much time on him. But if he does move the needle a bit. I think he's about as relevant as Porter is. But because Jokic is involved in this game, it's just like those two kind of are irrelevant. Like if in any other game we'd care, but with Jokic here, we just can't care. I'm not reacting to anything unless it involves Jokic.
All right. So are you queuing up bets now on both sides?
Yeah.
Or...
I think the actual way to do this is to have 2 sportsbooks open. I mean, if you can do 4 or 6 or 8, whatever, but at least 2 sportsbooks open where you have a bunch of Denver bets in one sportsbook and a bunch of New Orleans bets in another, and you just bet the one where the news breaks. The problem though is I don't think we're getting this news for 8 hours. I really don't.
Understood. When you say a bunch of, so let's talk about the sportsbook where you're anticipating Jokic in.
Okay.
Right? So beyond Denver -1, what else are you queuing up? So you're saying that's
a good question.
Lots of bets. So what else beyond that do you want to get money on?
I think the total is going to move a bit. So it's going to be Denver team totals really is the main thing that I'm looking at. Because currently Denver's team total is 116. I think if Jokic plays, it goes to 120, and if he doesn't play, it goes to like 112. So there's additional value on team totals. I think the game total, there would be some too, but not as much as team totals. So I don't want to bet on literally everything, but I think the number 2 priority would be a team total. So it would just be the over if he's in and the under if he's out. Obviously, Jokic has a major impact on scoring.
Since this is one of those, anytime that you're saying this is a bet as much as you can situation,
right.
I want to make sure we're giving the actual particulars on what to bet, because
fair enough.
It's not like you can just go bet. If you have unlimited unit size, doesn't mean you can go bet that on Denver -1. You've got to, there are limits involved. So you want to understand what else to get. So it's really Denver team. If Jokic is in, you like Denver team total over 116, and we like the -1.
-1, -115 on the money line, team total over at like 116, 16.5, whatever. And then if he's out, all the opposite. Yeah, and then if he's out, all the opposites. The inverse of all of that if he's out.
Fair. Okay.
We don't have any props listed, but assuming this ends up being a game time decision, which I do think is the most likely outcome, he's been a game time decision both of the games he's missed. It seemed like I don't want to miss it, so I'm going to try to stay ready just in case they announce it early. But I would be very, very surprised if we find out confirmation before warm-ups. This game is at 8 p.m., and I would set the over-under for time that we know Jokic will play at 7:20 Eastern, 40 minutes before, it's an 8:10 start, so 50 minutes before tip-off. That would be my line for when we find out. But there's like a small chance they just say this afternoon, no, we don't want to play him. But I think that would be very surprising. I think most likely we're going to find out later. So because of that delay, there may be props posted on other players in the meantime, like as it gets closer to game time. So they're
looking at Aaron Gordon, or what are we targeting?
Yeah, Aaron Gordon's assist numbers seem to go up without Jokic, but it's just going to depend where they set the line, because we have no idea what the lines are going to be. Murray also clearly does more with Jokic not there. So I think my favorite bet for a non-Jokic situation is a Murray assist prop, most likely, because he's not a traditional point guard. Jokic is the point guard. Murray's like running off screens and shooting mostly. But if Jokic is not there, Murray is the point guard. He plays more of a traditional point guard. The assist numbers have to go up. So normally Murray's assist prop would be like 4.5 or 5.5. And if they post it at like 7, then it's like you're not betting the over at that number, even if Jokic is out. But if we see that 4.5 or 5.5, then Murray gets added to like bets that I would potentially make if he doesn't play.
Got it.
Yeah, so it just depends what the number is. We have no idea yet. But I think Murray and Gordon will score more if both Jokic and Gordon are out. But if it's just Jokic out, I think we're looking more so just at assists. Because Porter can pick up some of that offensive slack. Like, he would be a major component of scoring in Jokic's absence. And we're not going to get Porter props because he is also questionable. So I think assists is where Porter is irrelevant for passing. Like, he's a catch and shoot, score first player. I think the prop market to stay the most attentive on would be Murray and maybe Gordon for assists. And then, yeah, like that, I think that's really going to be all that we even have available. Like, I don't anticipate seeing a prop listed for any other guy besides those two.
Got it. I got some fun numbers for you, especially when we get to Murray here. Gordon this year, 2.5 assists when Jokic plays, jumps to 4 when he doesn't. But check out these Murray splits.
Okay.
So Murray points with and without Jokic, 18.6, 22. Okay. Assists with and without, 5.4 and 8.3.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, rebounds, 3.7 and 8.0.
That sample size on that is small, right? Because Murray had a really big
games. Yeah. Four games this year. Yeah, it's only 4 games this year. But,
Murray had a triple-double 2 games ago, so that might be skewing. But, yeah, no, everyone should rebound more without Jokic, too, because he's getting all the rebounds.
Yeah, except guess who doesn't? Gordon. Yep. Gordon's numbers stay almost exactly the same, 6.7, 6.8. So, again, small sample size. It's only 3 games.
I mean, certainly, I don't think I would bet a Murray rebound prop on its own, but a Murray PRA, if it's set at a normal spot without Jokic, that is enough. Like the statistical combination, I would certainly go there. But it would have to be set at a place where it's not already pricing in Jokic not playing. Like it would have to be set at a place that's at least resembling where it normally would be for us to do that. So if anyone sees a Murray prop posted anywhere, feel free to message me. If I see it, I guess I'll tweet out, my thoughts on it if it's there. But we may not get them. Like they may just not post them. So to be determined, I guess.
And if you see those props, is this one of those where? Well, I guess, we need to see what the line is.
You can't bet a Murray over that is like priced up and then Jokic plays because then it's like a terrible bet. You have to wait for the news.
Right.
Because there are times where I'll say just bet the prop as soon as you see it. Like if we're anticipating a possible Steph Curry rest game and they post a Jordan Poole prop before we get that update.
Right.
Like I don't even wait. I just bet those immediately. But in this case, everybody knows that Jokic is 50-50. So we're not like ahead of the market on the information here. We have to wait till we actually get the information and then we can try to react as quickly as possible.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else relevant for today, or really we're just watching for Jokic news?
Yeah, and I think I don't really want to give this recommendation, but I think it is most likely just the recommendation that you don't have to be super attentive throughout the day here because I don't think they're going to give us an update till later. And it's going to be really frustrating if we just get one soon, but it doesn't make sense that they would give us confirmation in the afternoon. Like they've taken this up to game time consecutively and had him not play. I think it would be strange to not follow that trend, at least until he's made it back for a game. The one thing I do want to add here, but again, it's just speculation that we can't really make, but Denver plays tomorrow in Milwaukee. It's not a national TV game, but it is like MVP versus MVP and Giannis. And I would guess Jokic cares more about that game. So I'm not saying he's more likely to sit than to play because of that, but I do think he's more likely to sit compared to if they didn't have tomorrow's game. So maybe if this was an island game, he'd be 70-30 to play, but because it's not an island game, it's 50-50. Something like that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. So, big news that we probably won't hear until much later, but keep your push notifications on for Preaching Sense. If there's news early in the day, Matt will let us know if possible. Always _NBA is another good one to keep an eye on. Lots of fun stuff, I think, tomorrow based on what happens tonight. So you and Mr. Lockie will break it down while I'm on an aeroplane in the morning. Good luck to us tonight. Matt will be back with Mike same time tomorrow, and I think we'll have the gang all together on Thursday.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.